she basically would tell me, it wasn't like about the time because I didn't even plan to, like, it just dawned on me. I think I had been talking to her about for so long, and she has a similar relationship with her mom where it just doesn't bring her joy. And it was the whole concept of you can still love somebody and not have them in your life. And that was it. It's like I don't have to, just because the person is there for Thanksgiving or for another holiday or whatever, it doesn't mean that you need to bend and twist your life. Welcome to Holistic Dose. We've been through the plot twists, divorce, parenting, burnout, reinvention, and now we're doing midlife with way more honesty and way less BS. Think of us as your unfiltered friends, here to remind you that you're not too late, too old, or too far behind. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Jeanette.
So we're going to be talking about the no contact controversy with parents and adult kids.
And some siblings too. Isn't that a thing? Going no contact with siblings. But yeah, it's been all over no contact with parents and on TikTok. And I think Oprah, I didn't watch the Oprah, but didn't Oprah do an episode? Did you watch it?
I did. Yes, she did. And this was really fresh for me because I had just decided to go no contact with my dad right around that time. And there were some interesting thoughts around that. There was even like a mother who decided to go no contact with her son. So it was a little bit of the reverse.
Yeah.
And it's just deciding that, I think my big thing is just like blood just doesn't always equal love. Like, let's be real. And, I felt like there was a toxic experience for me in my relationship with my dad.
So on the Oprah episode, like what was the general message? Was it that like this is sometimes something you need to do, or was it portrayed negatively?
I think she always does a really good job about showing all sides, right? So it was a little bit of that and understanding it. It was like there was a young couple who decided to go no contact with, I think there was their siblings and then their parents because they weren't really accepting of their marriage. And then it was that one mom who wasn't accepting of her son in how he was trying to rule them. And then it was somebody else, I want to say it was a female who decided, no contact with her parents. And she just decided it was not healthy for me. So it was really, she did a good job about showing all different sides there, just so that everybody can understand a little bit better. And, it's a very personal decision. I think until that one came out, I had a lot of feelings about it. And I had talked to my therapist about it, about my relationships with my mom and my dad both, for a long time. And I just felt so uneasy and I didn't really know what to do. And like seeing that episode, it made me feel heard and validated. Like other people are going through this.
Yeah.
So I think it really helps. And I feel like this is what I at least wanted to bring to the forefront here is that, there's so many people who are going through all different variants and degrees of this that it's more common than you really will think.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's a foreign thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an only child, and as an adult, like I just have a healthy relationship with my parents. We just don't have these boundary issues. So I've just basically kind of listened to the stories of other people, but it's not something I've ever had to be put in that position, and that's tough to decide. Like, what is a healthy level of contact? And we hear no contact all the time, but you can also be low contact. And
Yes,
really,
there's different levels.
yeah, really, I guess it's about creating boundaries and, what level of boundaries do you need to have in your own specific situation?
Yeah, and I think, right now, us just talking about this, it's gonna probably cause some more rifts in my relationships. It is what it is. And that was a lot of the reason why I decided to go no contact with my dad. The approach that he took with me was very harsh, which I'll tell about in a minute. And then I do think that with my mom, it's probably naturally turned into a bit of a low contact. Not on purpose per se, but I think that's just kind of what it's turned into. Um, and I think with the generations, right? So
Yeah.
we were talking about the Gen X and the boomers really not wanting to be able to go out there. So if you think about the different generations, this is a lot of what I'm seeing, hearing, and I am experiencing it for myself, right? So the boomers, besides the Gen X and um, The boomers are just very much all about loyalty and obedience, and you don't talk back to your parents and keep the family together at all costs. And Gen X, at least for myself, I feel, even though I'm 1981, I'm pretty much like on the edge there, but I relate more to Gen X. I feel as though we want to become better parents than what we had, and we're not like we want to fix and do better. And, we're willing to break these cycles. I'm wanting to. At least this is what I'm all about. I've been struggling internally for a long time just because I have that blood relationship, specifically with my dad, but I've never felt like he's in that role for me.
Mhm.
I just really haven't. And yeah, I'm sure.
And your parents were divorced, right? So you didn't really grow up seeing your dad a lot?
No, I didn't. And, they got divorced probably when I was around 7 years old. And the one thing I think that caused him to lash out and do what he did to me, which I'll explain in a little bit, was because I've been talking just openly about him on the podcast, not saying anything bad, literally simply stating facts that he was an immigrant.
Mhm.
He was born in another country. That is a fact, right? So people born in other countries and, he had a communist upbringing. Normally, like, they're going to generally have just different life experiences, and it's never to say those of different generations, they're naturally gonna have those different experiences. It's just culturally so different, right?
Yeah.
Like, the way you grow up and have to fend for yourself and make your way to this country. I'm so proud of that. I am proud of my dad that he had a dream and he wanted to come to the United States and have a better life for himself. And he did it so young. He got here by the time he was like 21 and then got a job. He learned English. Like, I think that's cool and awesome. But he sees it as there's probably some shame and embarrassment there for himself. And
Got
he
it.
sees it as when I say he's an immigrant, and I've had said last year on these episodes, he takes offense to it as if it's a bad thing. I guess because he has shame, whatever. And again, so my whole thing is like that is his own stuff. And he's putting it on me. That is not my shit. That is not my burden. I think of him highly in those regards. How he handled it, I do not think very highly of him. I think he acted out as a child. And, to be honest, there's many, 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 many times my mom has acted out like a child too, to the point where I felt like I was the parent since I was a young kid. And in many situations, I was because I was in a very difficult upbringing, just around a lot of people that I should have never been around. Exposed to a lot of things I should have never, ever, ever been around or exposed to, and same with my sisters. And it was shitty.
Yeah.
And I protect my daughter at all costs now to make sure that I do better. And I didn't already feel that closeness. And all it took was he basically set me up in such a way that I am still always that's the hard thing for me, is I'm still always that 44-year-old now seeking that love and attention and praise and acceptance from my parents that I will just never get. And that is so, so hard to swallow.
Yeah.
So when he sent me this text, he basically like baited my sisters and I one day, like, and I have 2 years older and 2 years younger, and he said, "Oh, hey girls, like, do you wanna like Tiffany," or he said, "Girls, send pictures of like," first he said it's a picture of himself that had his like siblings in the picture and said, "Guess who's who? Like, which one's me and which one's my mom and my dad?" And we did that. And then he said, "Oh, send pictures of your grandpa and your grandma and your mom," and he made us think that there was this game that he was gonna play with us. So I went and I went to my photo albums and I felt so proud because I was the one who responded first. I was that middle child looking for that praise, like I did good. My other sisters weren't replying right away, but I'm always here, willing and ready. And I'm going to get upset over this now, but that's just the way it was. And um, so I rushed and I like took pictures and I like sent it and then I guessed correctly, of course. And then he basically said like, "Oh, I'm gonna, with my life experiences, I'm gonna tell you about, you know." He was making it seem like, how we are, who we are, and and based on looks and things like that. And it turned out to be nothing about looks at all, at all. So he he said he would send separate text messages to all of us, and he sent this nasty text message to me, basically calling out all these things in my life and stating like, don't you think like you chose a different life than why do you think you chose a different life than your sisters, basically, who are still married and and they have more kids and all this stuff. And he even brought up about my abortion. And that was like the most like painful thing. Like he could have said anything, but the fact that like he was basically saying that I was a bad person because of that, and saying that like I'm like my mom because she had an abortion younger. I said, "You know what? Like, that was it. That was it." It was basically it was, like, 2 days before the New Year's, and I decided, "Enough is enough. I'm not getting anything from this guy. I'm really not." Like, his birthday comes around, and I would just at that point, was text him happy birthday and Christmas too, and it was honestly, it was checking the box. There was nothing like, he doesn't really know anything about me, and he was holding on to because he had listened to all the episodes of the podcast, and he just said, I guess he got tired of it. And he just decided to lash out on me and poke at me, probably to make himself feel better.
And so before this, tell us a little bit of what your relationship was like with your dad as an adult.
Yeah, as an adult, there was really not much there. It was, very critical in many ways. Specifically when I got a divorce, he projected on me too. He said that I would be single forever, and I would not be able to find anybody better. And I was like, wow. Like, not just like, Tiffany, I'll support you or do whatever. People get divorced all the
Yeah.
time. I'm like, Dad, you got divorced yourself. But he was projecting on his experience with my mom.
Mhm.
So we had went through so many things. Like, I mean, I don't even know if I should go there now. And this would be like a tit for a tat, but so many things that he did wrong in many ways, inappropriate things, hella inappropriate things.
Yeah, so it's not like a situation where, you know, you had one argument with your dad or he did one mean thing and then all of a sudden you're going no contact. Like there's
Yeah,
a long history here.
there's a long, there's a
Yeah.
long history. And it took that was the last, like, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
It was like, how could you call yourself a father? And it just felt so evil and cruel, at least to me, how you would bait and switch, because what happened was he made it seem like it was gonna be something he was gonna share with both sisters, and he didn't. He didn't text either one of them. He did it just for me because he knew that he could set me up, and he knew my personality enough to know that, "Oh, I'm gonna get her on this." And if she ever says anything, well, she said she wanted to play the game. She said she's willing and ready. So, okay, I'll tell her everything that I'm thinking and feeling. And it was just so nasty. I was in shock.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to let this get to me. No. And it all made sense when I saw that episode with the interview on Oprah. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, and if someone weren't a blood relation, we'd never even think about having someone that toxic in our life, right? It's
no,
like,
no.
because they're family, we ask, how much are we supposed to put up with and allow someone to be cruel to us because of that blood relation?
Yeah. And at one point, I wanted to just, you know, write back to him and say, what was the point of that? Were you trying to help me? Because, they say sometimes when people say things to you, right? If you have them repeat it, they're usually not going to repeat it, right? So you ask them to repeat it. And then you say things like, was that meant to help me or hurt me? Because they're not going to really probably want to openly say, hurt me or hurt you rather. But then how could he even try to explain and say that what he said to me would help me,
Yeah.
right? It probably would help him. It would make him feel better about himself. And again, this all came from him feeling tired about me saying that my dad's an immigrant. That's basically saying, like, you know, my sister lives in California.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? There's nothing there, and it is, it's an unfortunate thing. But he has a relationship still with my sisters, and they one has a better relationship than the other probably and puts up and allows more things, but she probably also doesn't let a lot of it get to her. And I'm just different and my dynamic is different.
So how long has it been since you've talked to your dad?
That text was like December like 29th or something of 2025.
Has he tried to reach out?
No. And the funny, real weird thing was he was telling my other two sisters, he had this conversation saying like, "Oh, we should go on a family trip." And he's like, "I'll pay for it. I'll take, both daughters and all the kids." And she was like, "Well, Tiffany's not gonna go." Ariane said that. And he was like, "Oh, well, maybe you can talk to her and see if she would let Gabby go. My daughter."
Mhm.
And she's like, "She's not gonna go without her mom."
Yeah.
No, my daughter feels the same way because she's old enough and she knows and she's seen it the many times when he had criticized me about my weight and about really anything in my life. And she's like, "No, I no." And the sad part to me was that when I got divorced, my ex's mom had just passed away and Gabby's grandma from that side. And and then her grandfather on that side too. So she lost both grandparents. And I had asked him, "Can you please step up?" And the fact that she truly really has like no grandparents that are really there for her because her mom isn't really there for her in those ways either. It kind of sucks. And that's the part that hurts, I think.
Mhm.
So I have I've learned to deal with it. And I think like I've talked to some other people about it. Like since going through that, I've shared with other people. And once I had started sharing, then they started telling me that they felt, that it was going to be close to time for them to do the same with their parents too.
Yeah. So when you were going through therapy and talking with your therapist about this, what kind of tips were you given, or what were just some of the thoughts that your therapist had on when is it appropriate or when is it the right time to go no contact?
So she basically would tell me it wasn't like about the time because I didn't even plan to like it just dawned on me. I think I had been talking to her about for so long and she has a similar relationship with her mom where it just doesn't bring her joy. And it was the whole concept of you can still love somebody and not have them in your life,
Yeah.
right? And that was it. It's like I don't have to just because the person is there for Thanksgiving or for another holiday or whatever, it doesn't mean that you need to bend and twist your life. I think he brought up a scenario that I felt very difficult about. It was about a year ago. And again, the people pleaser in me wants to always be there and support everybody. So he had planned this trip with his girlfriend where he was going to go stop and see one sister and then rent a car and then go drive down and go all these different cities, boom, boom, boom. On his way back, he was going to visit in Atlanta and where I live and then see us that last day. Well, he's retired and she is too. So time, they could do it any day. So I had told him, "Hey, what works best is if you end up seeing me on a Sunday, then we could spend the whole day with you. That would be great, right?" And he was like, "Oh, actually, I just go with the flow, whatever, the time. I don't wear a watch. I don't this, da 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 da." And it looks like it's going to be more like Monday night. And I was really stressed with work then. I had all these deadlines. I didn't know about this in advance. And then I started thinking about, like he didn't plan this trip for me. This was his thing. And he was going to check the box that he got to see the daughters along the way and was what was convenient for him. Gabby had something to do after school and it was going to have to be super rushed, like go get her and then go run down to see him. And for what, for like an hour? And I just decided, you know what? No, it's not convenient for us, actually.
Yeah.
That was it. So that's when I made that decision and I became okay with it then. And she was like, "You don't have to just because, don't do things just to check a box, even myself. It wasn't fair to myself. And I had been putting myself last for far too long and decided, you know what? This is going to stop. I'm going to stop this cycle and I'm going to be a better parent."
So with your dad, because I know that with your mom, you brought up how a lot of times how you were like the parent, and that's called like parentification, I think. And there's a whole with therapists talk about like enmeshment
Yeah.
and just not having boundaries, somebody else's feelings and thoughts and anxiety become your own. We see this a lot in divorce, actually. I would say a lot, but enmeshed relationships between parents and kids where the kid um, feels responsible for their parents'
Yep.
feelings. And
Happiness,
yes,
everything.
and then
Yes.
in divorce, when that can become when I see that as a divorce attorney, it's when, you have this enmeshed relationship between a parent and child, and then the parent is having a lot of anxiety or other types of feelings related to the other parent. And so that screws up the relationship between the child and the other parent because they're like, oh, when I've seen it, it's usually an enmeshed relationship between mom and child, but it's not always necessarily like that. And so then that in a divorce dynamic, that creates real problems with the child having a relationship with their father because they are feel guilty. That hurts my mom. My mom has, this she's upset because of dad, and it's like it becomes this real issue in family law cases.
They can't separate the feelings, like, what are they really feeling or what are they acting out of the guilt? And that happened a lot, definitely. My mom would always trash talk my dad, and then my dad, it's so funny because my dad in that whole text and everything, he basically started saying about how he leaves things in the past. But yet he told me about a story I'd never heard about when he was on his honeymoon with my mom and basically was like accusing her of cheating on him that day and bringing up all these things and I'm thinking, "My God, you are totally living in the past. Like, that was forever ago." Um, but they would always do that and I make sure with Gabby and her dad, like, we keep things separate.
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
So with your dad, do you feel like because he wasn't around as much, so do you feel like I guess what was the dynamic there? Like, did he expect, were you like responsible for the way he felt, or how is it different from the dynamic with your mom? Because your mom, it's like you were the parent, you were the one who was kind of responsible for how, you know, she felt. How was it with your dad?
Yeah. With my dad, it was weird. I think a little bit when I was younger, I remember thinking, and this was just like one thing that he had said. It was about well, yeah, there was about finances, how he made me feel weird about finances. I think because he had to pay the child support. So there was always like a guilt there, right? And things associated with finances. Whenever we would be with him, it was like, "Oh, you girls are burning a hole in my pocket." And there was always a conversation about, "Oh, get your dad to pay this more money." But then he would make me feel guilty because he's like, "Well, I only work this, meager job." Well, he had the ability to do more,
Yeah.
but he just didn't want to. So there's definitely guilt there. Like I could never feel like I could ask for more. It was just like, this is what I'm gonna give you and this is it. Like, too bad, you know? Um, yeah, and just very critical. As far as, like, other feelings go, I don't like, I think I always, like, as much as he doesn't want to hear, about him being an immigrant, he did still always, like, use that as a thing where he'd be like, "Well, I'm not college educated or I'm not, school educated like you guys." And I'm like, "I don't care. That doesn't mean that it's okay to treat people a certain way or to just say whatever you want." And he would always fall back on well, America's a free country, and we could just say, like, that's what we're here for." And I'm like, that just doesn't give you permission. Just so I always had to, even though I didn't have that relationship very much with him, I started having it a little bit more once his wife had passed away. He got remarried, and then I started feeling bad for him, and then he was now single, and you know, I wanted to be there for him. I'm like, maybe I finally have this relationship. It was like when I was 21 years old, he told me he loved me. And I don't know, it was interesting, but I definitely felt bad for him.
So it seems like, when I'm hearing people tell stories about why they've gone no contact with their family, really it all boils down to an inability to have boundaries. Like their parent is, for some reason not able to hold boundaries. Have you ever seen Ann Abel on TikTok?
No,
So,
not that I know of at least.
and this is kind of the stuff where like, you know, because I don't have these issues within my family, thankfully. It's a healthy relationship with my parents. So the knowledge I have about people going no contact is from like the stories that I hear. And so there's this woman, Ann Abel, on TikTok, and I don't know if she's a socialite, but she's a wealthy woman who lives in New York City.
Yeah.
And the
The
stories she
stories she
tells
so
makes I don't think she's quite no contact with her adult children, but I would not be surprised if her adult children went no contact. And I think that she pulls the kinda shit that the toxic parents
Drew
who end up being no contact, I is typical because of what she's tried to pull. So here's an example. So there was one story that she told, like, she tells these stories, and then the people who are listening to them are like, "You're the problem," but, she
Right.
doesn't see it. And so one story she told, like, she hates her daughter-in-law, and it's like, daughter-in-law tries to put up some rules and boundaries, and she can't handle it. And so one of the rules or boundaries was, "Please don't buy our kids gifts unless it's a birthday or holiday."
Oh,
Don't just
this sounds like my mom.
really?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, and my younger sister,
so
yes.
son and daughter-in-law were like, "We only have so much space, I guess," and, she didn't really go into the reasons, but that's the reason, right? Like, we have too much shit, so, you nicely say it, "Please don't just lavish the kids and all these things."
Right. And then you don't want the kids expecting those things all the time, and yes, uh-huh.
And so this woman, Anne, didn't like that boundary of it needs to be a holiday or birthday or whatever. And so this is so manipulative. So she went to I guess, the dermatologist, and
see
the
the
dermatologist was like,
results
"Hey, this
like the
spot looks a little funny. Let's biopsy
biopsy
it."
and
And according to this woman, I think she's one of these toxic people where you can't really believe everything she
Yeah,
says.
right.
She says that the doctor was like, "That really looks like melanoma." Okay.
Ah,
Yeah. So I think, and what probably happened was they were like, "This is a suspicious spot. Let's
right.
biopsy it." So she leaves her doctor's appointment. And what she even says in her TikTok was, "I thought, how do I turn this into a way that I can buy a present for my grandkid?"
Stop. Stop.
And so she
Like,
contacts her,
celebrating oh my
yeah,
gosh.
she contacts her son and says, "I have melanoma. There's nothing anyone can do for me.
Oh my gosh.
Can I buy a dump truck toy for my grandson?" How manipulative is that, right?
What?
And so then, of course, the son was like, "Of course,"
Oh
thinking
my god.
mom's has serious melanoma.
Yeah.
And the biopsy came back 2 days later, and she was completely fine. She's just
Wow.
so toxic and manipulative that, some people just don't know how to handle a boundary. So the other crazy story from her, and I also just kinda don't believe her entire, everything she said
Everything.
about this. Let's see. It
Mhm.
was, she claims that her daughter-in-law
daughter-in-law
says that
said
her
that her
granddaughter
granddaughter
is only allowed to wear
about
dresses at weddings.
wedding.
I suspect that the real truth is maybe granddaughter doesn't like wearing dresses. And
Yes.
so, mom, the daughter-in-law was like, "Yeah, grandma, we only wear dresses at weddings,
Right,
and
right,
that's our rule," or whatever, right? Because
right,
that seems
right.
silly to be like, "You're not
Mhm.
allowed to wear dresses unless you have weddings." This woman is so crazy and toxic that she held a wedding for her dogs
What?
so she could have the granddaughter wear a dress. Oh, it's
Oh
a
my god.
wedding. You gotta wear a dress
No.
now.
And what's like, was she hoping to get out of it just, like, pictures
I
or
guess.
what?
But, that's kind of the crazy shit you hear, but it's people who,
Yeah.
it's parents who are just unable to have boundaries with their adult kids, which, I mean, your dad, like, you didn't ask his opinion
No.
about your abortion or your
No.
divorce or, and it's like, as adults, especially adults, like, we're not young adults.
I'll give you, so the gifts thing and my mom, that's totally her. So her love language is gifts. So I wonder if this woman is that as well, right? And she wasn't able to spend as much time with us growing up because she was working all the time, so she would buy us stuff, and I'm like, just wanted her to hang and play with us. So she would do the same thing with Gabby and then does it definitely with my sister and her kids, right? And she had the same request of her. And I was visiting once and she had just put that firm rule in place. And I was trying to be the middle child and play both sides. Like, hey, I can understand this side and I can understand that side, right? So I gave my mom an option. I said, hey, why don't you go to like the dollar store and buy some little hand stamps or stickers, things like that. That if you feel like you really need to give the kid something, give them like a little stamp or a sticker. There's plenty of things out there that don't have to be a physical gift, but you're still giving and showing love. Sit down with them in color and make something together. But no, she couldn't help herself. And we were in CVS and she sees, it was around Christmas time, this little dancing Santa. And she's like, oh my God, but so and so would love that. And da da da. I'm like, would they really? Like, would they really? Would they really notice or care for it just as much or any more than all the other hundreds of toys that they have? No, but it was going to make her feel good in the moment. And I think she listened maybe at that time, but then it quickly went back to her behaviors. I think with her too is that, she'll say that she wants to have a relationship with me. And then she doesn't reply back to my text. Like, she just like, you could see that she's read it. So it's kind of like when she's in a mood and wants to act like a child, um, because she too had listened to things on my podcast and was upset and decided to not reach out to me on my birthday because she didn't like that. I was talking about domestic violence that I experienced growing up around her as a result of the decision she's made. And again, we can't go back and change them. I don't
Yeah.
hate her for those. Do I wish that back then she made better decisions? Absolutely. Does it mean I'm going to stop talking about it to make sure that, other people are aware and know that you're not alone and you can go through these things and uh, you can still, despite all the bullshit I've been through, I'm not letting it hold me back in life. That's for sure. Because I've been through a lot of shit and people would not normally realize and know, but I have. And I share about it because I want people to know that you can get through it and you don't have to let it hold you down. But she takes things like that very personally. So, you know, um, it's a lot of passive aggressive behavior, and it's you know, oh, don't work too much or don't da da da. I'm thinking like, A, are you just saying that because you did all the time? But then also B, like I'm trying to give my daughter a different life than what we had. We was always it was chaos. It was the most craziest circus shit ever, like truly ever. And then it's always jabs, and I don't feel like it's coming from a loving place. I don't even know what that looks like. For to purely just have a mother say, you know, I love you, you look great, or you're doing great, and like not have a backhanded something behind it. Oh, but it was because da 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 da, or oh, doesn't believe me that something I'm working on is a success, or hopefully you're not going to get screwed out of that one, and da 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 da. I'm like, why can't it just be like, you're happy for me?
Yeah.
Like, that's it, And I know that a lot of it, I don't hold it against her as much because I know a lot of it comes from her own resentment and things like that, and lessons that she hoped or wished she would have taught me. But it just doesn't feel good. And I don't really have anything to go off there. So it's like you say you want to have relationships in a conversation, then I try to just ask how she is, and she just kind of will now like barely answer. I don't really know what else to do.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something we have to realize that we can't change someone else, we can't fix someone else. All we can do is, tell them how we feel and how we hope the relationship can be, but if
Yeah.
they're not able to be in a healthy, mature relationship, we don't need to feel obligated to basically subject ourselves to
Yeah.
abusive or poor treatment and, critical, toxic, whatever, that, we need to be able to have those boundaries. And that's healthy. That allows us to be our best selves for our own kids.
Yeah. And I strongly feel like our generation is all about, we're not perfect. Like nobody is perfect, but we're just trying to do every day. I'm trying to do a little bit better today or the next day than I was the day before. And I'm trying to do that with my daughter as well, so that she's going to end up later on in life talking about all the things and my ADHD and whatever the things are. But it doesn't mean that, I'm not trying to like pass on guilt to her.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be very independent of that. And even with, her decision to not really want to have anything to do with my dad, I've spoken to her about that too. Um, my relationship is independent of that and it's her decision, right? So she's almost 16 now and she's seen enough and experienced enough. And she's like, well, I don't really get anything out of it
Hmm.
because he's very, very critical of her too. Same thing about the dresses and like, oh, you don't wear dresses because your mom doesn't. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, I do wear dresses.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. But that's a very cultural thing. So I think as we close out here, I will say for myself personally, right? I think this has to hold true for so many other people with making a difficult decision. I didn't just stop this relationship with my dad because I stopped loving him. This is, it was really difficult, and I feel still really weird about it. I don't know if he saw much about it. I think because he's very selfish, he's very into himself, and he was more concerned about an image of what other people thought or might think, which is bizarre to me. It's no, like, he's already acted in certain ways with so many people to make his own bed and he should lay in it. But um, my whole thing is that I started showing up for myself. And especially this year, it's all about myself and my daughter. And that was the decision I made. And sometimes that's what breaking this family cycle looks like. That's my story.
Yeah. And I think that going to individual therapy is a good thing for anyone who is having a difficult relationship with a family member and
Yep.
considering no contact or low contact. I know for me personally, like boundaries has always been an issue. So, I don't have a problem with my relationship with my parents, but I needed therapy to learn how to set boundaries. And so I would imagine that for most or a lot of people in this situation with their parents, it might be hard to learn to set boundaries and say, here's my boundary. And then if that's violated, being willing and able to say, all right, I need to be low contact or, kind of remove myself from the situation instead of just letting something negative happen over and over and over.
And I think that, yeah, I would agree. It's creating boundaries is hard for me because I grew up being that pleaser and I still am. So what does that mean? You're going to place rules on your parents? How dare you? Like if I spoke back to my mom, she would threaten me and slap me across the face. Like there's no way, And I have a different relationship with Gabby where I don't yell, I don't scream, I don't make it like a hostile environment or walking in eggshells. It's just like a horrible way to live. But I think I've lived that for so long that I don't think I ever clearly set boundaries. I tried to say them along the way, but I never really fully, set them. And when I did, it was not really met with, like with a positive sentiment. So it's something you got to work on little by little and just decide and take it one day at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, make sure you keep listening to us on all your platforms, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at A Holistic Dose on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and visit us online at aholisticdose.com. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with more Unfiltered Friend Talk right here on A Holistic Dose.
Take care.
Bye.